A very special good morning to you, and welcome to another edition of your early morning breakfast show, Rise and Shine. It's time to rise and shine on Spectrum Television. My name is Janice Kobum, and I'm super delighted to be here again, once again.
Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. It's a beautiful midweek to rise and shine wherever you are. My name is Uyai Anekan, and I am thankful to be here this morning. Of course, we do hope that you are already following us across all social media platforms, all of which you can find at spectrumtv.ng. Like I always say, there is a beehive of activity happening on Twitter. So you need to be following us at Spectrum T Online. Let's get the conversation going. Of course, we'd also have a phone lines displayed in the course of the program.
Mhm.
Let's hear Nigerians talk about the issues that are happening around the country, so we just can also get to feel your pulse,
Yeah,
once
definitely.
again. But we are delighted that you chose Spectrum Television and Rise and Shine this morning. Let's do this together.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do this together. Good morning,
Good
we are.
morning, Janice.
Another day on set, and it's beautiful. Just like you said, let's get to hear from Nigerians this morning. It's part of what we are going to be doing. I know that one of the most pressing issue right now is the issue of the fuel subsidy removal
Yes,
and
yes.
the hike in fuel prices as well. But it's also very funny how the price regulation looks like. So it's different prices for different states. And then I begin to wonder what exactly is
What's making a
that,
difference?
why is there that difference that some states are buying at higher prices than other states are? What exactly, is causing the difference? Is it that for the states that are buying at a little bit of a lower price, they get their own fuel or petroleum products at cheaper rates or something? I still can connect the dots when it comes to the price regulation being different in different states.
It's a problem, but then that is something that even the major body that regulates pricing and fuel distribution in the country did for us. So it's NNPCL that can best, explain why that difference is there. Did they do that based on what they know as their quota of delivery to these states? But for now, it's just vague. But Nigerians are always Nigerians
Hmm.
adjusting to what's available on ground, and
Yeah.
we're hoping that this will change pretty soon. But the issue is we don't know how long until
Mm.
this changes,
Hmm.
because a lot more regulations are being done around the present day situation. So we do not know if this is going to be abating anytime soon.
Mm.
And as a reason of that, we are seeing a lot of state governments look for ways, to help the citizens go by. And I think it's part of our story, our flash story is this today. And it's not even just Kwara State. I think I've seen two or three more states saying, let's cut down the working days, to 3 times a week. Some parastatals are saying, let's reshuffle, the whole workforce and distribute how people come to work at least
Mm.
3 days a week, because transportation has skyrocketed literally everywhere.
Yeah.
People are looking at between 100% hike in transportation or 200% hike.
Mm.
So that just makes the amount
It's
of
even
money.
more like
Yeah,
400%
you
hike
can
right now.
imagine. You
Yes.
can imagine. There's literally no stop that you're going to get to that has not been increased. And
Yeah.
if you really don't want to be embarrassed, you just have to go by. But
I,
then,
I think I think yesterday I was reading a story
mhm,
about a particular fuel station and the owners. I think they're based in Lagos, but they have like outlets of their petrol stations in all the states, and a lot of testimonies coming through from people that have patronized them. I don't quite know the name of the fuel station though, but they get to tell you that these people. Okay, so whether there's fuel hike or no fuel hike, their prices are stable. They're still selling for 198 naira. And why is that so? That's because they say, look, we are still distributing and we're still selling old
old stock.
stock. So
True
there's
that.
no point making life more difficult for Nigerians, right? So I heard a lot of people come out to say that yes, even when there's normal price hike in fuel or petroleum supply,
Mm,
aside from even this fuel subsidy removal, when you have shortage in circulation now,
yeah.
you have people begin to hoard, you have people begin to sell at high prices that these people don't. They don't even hoard.
Mm,
They still sell at that 198. But again, you see that it's cost effective for them as well, because you find a lot of people going trooping to that particular filling station, so it's going to be
That's selling
interest
more.
in turnover. They're going to be selling more to more people.
Yeah.
Do you get? So
and still making their money.
Yeah, they're still making their money, but it just shows that there are some Nigerians that have the good hearts, that have the people in mind, and will not want to add to the suffering of Nigerians. And it's a good thing. So I feel that if other people can toe the lines of these people, it makes a whole lot of sense. We are in this together. That's just the truth of it. And you see, sometimes when people ask for higher prices in transportation, I'm like, where do they think that people get the monies from? Is it that because fuel has gone up, okay, that automatically government has also increased salaries? Or there's somewhere that people exactly, or there's somewhere that people pick those monies. So it just doesn't make any sense.
And some transporters are very they lack mercy when they are doing these things. They just tell if you don't have it, stand here, and all of those kinds of things. But like
let's really be considerate.
Yes, like we established initially, this is first of all a matter of greed, on the part of Nigerians. Before we even get to the federal government did not put things in place. It's just Nigerians being greedy. All of the fuel we are consuming right now is the old stock that they had bought. No one bought it at an exorbitant, rate.
Price.
So you're now making life more difficult for other people. But on the heels of these and our flash news this morning, we see that the Kwara State government on Monday directed that work days be reduced from 5 days to 3 per week for every worker in the state. Now, this is according to the government following the astronomical hike in transport fares. Of course, this was contained in a statement in Ilorin by Murtala Atoyebi, the Chief Press Secretary to Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak. Now, the state head of service, Mrs. Susan Oluwole, therefore directed all heads of ministries, departments, and agencies to immediately work out a format indicating the alternating working days for each worker under them. Now, Oluwole said that the government took the temporary measure to ease the burden on public workers in the state. She also said that it was part of measures to relieve the state workers of the hardship being experienced as a result of the fuel subsidy removal announced by the federal government. Now, however, she warned that workers should not abuse the magnanimity of the governor, stressing that the regular monitoring of MDAs by her office would be intensified to ensure strict compliance. Of course, this is very, very necessary. But we must first of all start by commending Governor Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, of Kwara State, for thinking of this in the first place. You don't just drag people along and expect optimum delivery when you can see that every environment and everything involved is making life really difficult. And I believe that just like Oluwole, the head of service, has said, if people will be true to themselves and make sure that on the 3 days that they have been designated to work, they come to work and carry out their duties effectively, it will help the state move further. Because first of all, the state government and the civil service of the state have given a concession. So those 3 days, don't extend it. Just go to work and get the work properly done and let the rotation continue. First of all, they're even considering, okay, the salaries are not increased. You can't, come under the burden, because let's be very honest, a lot of people are going to become very underproductive in this season.
Exactly.
Yeah, very underproductive, because when you think of where am I, transportation is one thing, feeding is another thing. All the other emergencies of life are still inside. So there's a lot of people that are working under a lot of mental burden. So this is Kwara State government saying, okay, we see what's happening. In the meantime, until all of this happens, let's work 3 days a week.
But yeah, if we work 3 days a week, I commend, the Kwara State government for doing that. It shows that they're sensitive to the plight of Nigerians and the plight of the Kwara people, But again, when you say that you're working 3 times in a week, we already know how the civil service works, that people hardly even come to work when it comes to public offices, and all of that. So we now cut it down to 3 weeks, 3 days in a week. You talked about not being productive. So I think that that's another fear that will come in, When you say that people should come and work just 3 days in a week, I'm happy that Mrs. Oluwole has also said, don't misuse this effort or this gesture by the government. But then again, you will also see that gesture being misused, because people might end up not even coming to work again, because it's 3 days. But again, they have said there's going to be a monitoring mechanism or put in place to monitor, but how far can we monitor these things?
I believe that the monitoring can be done. And when we are looking at 3 days a week, we are looking at maybe an entire office of 10 people, 3 days, 3 days. So it's not that there are going to be days of the week that there is no one working in a particular office. We'll just distribute the number of persons available in a department to do 3 days, 3 days. So all 5 working days a week, there's going to be someone at work. And when we say, let the monitoring team be there, this is, like she said, it's going to be intensified. It means that in Kwara State, for instance, there is, a stable monitoring of what goes on in the civil service. And so when she says it's going to be intensified, I believe that they understand what it means for their state civil service. But this is, first of all, very commendable. Before we go to the fact that yes, human beings always like to
cut corners,
True. And extend
and take advantage of a particular situation.
This should be overall good for the people of Kwara State, because that transportation you're serving for 2 days, you can take it to plan for something else, little side hustle or something. But it's
so you think it's something that other states can toe the line and grant their workers 2-3 days working, and then
it should be a recommendation that other state governors should look into. But then at the end of the day, you're not going to force anybody's hand.
So for me, I really think that it's going to be counterproductive. Okay. It's better that they get to increase salaries, just like TUC has said. Even though I laughed over it, though, the Trade Union Congress actually said, okay, Mr. President, since you are talking about reviewing the minimum wage, now take it up to 200,000 naira. And in my head, I'm like, come on, these people, But again, yes. But on the flip side now, you're even asking questions like, even if you take it to 200,000, 300,000, how many, governments are ready to pay that? When the 30,000 naira minimum wage test started in 2019, have not even seen some governors pay those monies, as salaries to their workers. But still on the heels of, governments of different states now trying to see how they can ameliorate the sufferings of their people. I just saw this now, that Obaseki of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, has increased the minimum wage of the state's workers from 30,000 to 40,000 due to the rising cost of living. Of course, this announcement and development was made yesterday. Kudos to Godwin Obaseki and the people of Edo State. Again, it's commendable that we have these governors, coming to say, okay, we understand the plight of the people. Let's see how we can help them, go through this period. But let it not be that we are making these kinds of statements for publicity stunts. Let it be that there's full implementation of that. Okay, so it's not just coming out, oh, Godwin Obaseki says 40,000 naira for all workers, all civil servants in Edo State. And 2-3 months down the line, we are hearing, aside from never being paid, we are hearing things like, oh, Edo State government is owing the workers in Edo State 4 years, 3 years, and all the like. So it doesn't just make sense. If you know that you're increasing their salary rate, kudos, we congratulate you and your efforts, and your government, but let it be that these salaries are coming in regularly so that people can actually use them to solve issues that they want to solve with it.
Yeah, like you asked earlier, if for taking out some working days, if other state governments will want to toe that line. Now we can obviously see that different state governments will think differently as to how they want to ameliorate the issue. So Godwin Obaseki of Edo State is saying, okay, let's increase the pay. So if you even take the 10,000 extra, whatever percentage that is to your salary, you
can help with transportation.
To your transportation. So different governors, are going to think of different ways to, aid this. Some people may say, let's put buses on the road that takes, our workers to their destination. So there are different ways this can be handled.
That's what I was even thinking for Kwara State. Instead of saying let people sit at home and not come to work or come to work 3 times a week, Subsidized transportation for them. It makes a whole lot of sense. Or even give them free buses that will bring them to work.
Well, we're also looking at several modalities that will make that possible. Do they have, the financial strength as a state to subsidize the transportation?
Well, that's
That
another
obviously
angle.
everyone will do what's easiest for them. Those states might have enough money to top 10,000 on everyone's salary. Someone else might look into their purse and say, "This is not sustainable." So 3 days, 2 days off is better for us than So it's going to be interpreted per state.
Differently.
So imagine like a state like Akwa Ibom can decide they want to add 30,000 to the minimum wage. All right, then.
Yeah. Are you talking about this golden
Aquarium has
era?
money.
Okay, we have
Aquarium has
money.
money.
Anyways, I don't think government will agree to what AI is actually
Do you
saying.
understand?
Government never feels they have
They
money.
have money.
Government, is like a woman. A woman never has money. Even when you see how it's so much money somebody else is on, trust me. Anyways, let's go back to some serious conversations this morning on our major story. We saw President Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday. Of course, that was on Tuesday now. Task security and intelligence agencies in the country on the importance of sharing information and intelligence among themselves, saying hoarding such resources could be counterproductive in the fight against terrorism. Now, the Director of Information State House Abuja, Abiodun Oladunjoye, in a statement, noted that the president spoke after undertaking a tour of the new Office of National Security Advice and Facilities at the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, in Abuja. Now, former President Muhammadu Buhari had in March inaugurated a new office of the NCTC. President Tinubu, while noting the efforts demonstrated in countering terrorism and the state-of-the-art facilities at the two facilities, highlighted the importance of backing such efforts with knowledge. He said his administration had recognized that in order to achieve economic revival, prosperity and development, security should be of optimum priority. We'll leave it there. Yeah. I think serious concerns. I'll take it back to, the statement of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Let's hit the ground running. And a lot of people have actually commended, Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this particular move. For them, it's coming very apt when you look back at how insecurity has bedeviled the country. Just a few days ago, I think that was a Monday on the papers, 20 people were killed in Sokoto for one reason or the other. And it now looks as if, human lives are lives of cows. They take human lives more than they take the lives of cows and all of that. So if we have the president step in, and few weeks into his administration, a few days into his administration, he's been able to visit these very key areas, that has really stifled our growth economically and otherwise, then I think we should give him a very big thumbs up at this moment.
Reviewing the security architecture of the country is something that we are seeing. President Tinubu put his hands down to do, and some of the areas he's concentrating on, going beyond just pumping money into the security. He's saying, let us review how we gather information and how we share this information across all the security apparatus that we have in the country. So it's more like the Nigeria police does not have an intel that could help the Nigerian military to handle a particular situation. And since we want to do it in honor of the Nigeria police, we do not share information. He's saying one proper way for us to be able to handle the security issues we have in the country is if all our security forces are sharing,
there's a synergy.
Yeah, there's a synergy. Let's share the information. It's counterterrorism for the country. It's not counterterrorism for a specific unit. And I think that that is such a good place to come from. And like we always say, sometimes is a lacuna in communication.
Exactly.
That is why we are experiencing some of the issues that we see. When we always when we would have Dr. get to speak with us about security, he would often say that the information is out there, it's available. Now when you say let's share information, we're also going to look at how President Tinubu is going to adjudicate the information that they get. When you get this information, how
what do you do with it?
Yes, how do you implement it to bring about overall security in the country? So this is good. I like the tone that I see the president going with in his approach to certain situations in the country. It's from a very advised perspective. It's not like he's coming from a different prism of knowledge to how he's handling issues. So I think we are in for a surprising ride as we go forward. But this is absolutely good, and of course. Okay, so that's it. And we also saw the fact that he also had a meeting with the National Security Advisor. So he's talking to the people at the helms of affairs. Let's put our house together. And like we would say, this is part of the things he will be doing in the first couple of days and the first couple of weeks, comparing notes from what was left for him from the Buhari-led administration to his administration. Okay, let's see where did they work on, where and where did they fall, so that we can know how to bring about our policies. So this is refreshing.
I think also that, looking at the first few days of the president's work in office as the president, you'd see that most of the meetings that he's holding at this particular moment are very strategic meetings, right? So he looks at areas that are like very key areas, right, and try to see how we can begin to solve those things. But then again, I would always say, let it go beyond just visiting these facilities and having talks with, the NSA and all of that. I know that there were talks on the papers the other day, I think that was on Monday now, that he's going to reshuffle service chiefs and retire about 300 or thereabouts. So that's also going to form our focus conversation this morning. Let's find out, how will this affect the military architecture overall when we are here complaining that we do not even have enough personnel in the military forces? So these are conversations that we need to have concerning, some of these issues and policies that is going to be implemented very, very soon. But again, I think that his meetings this few days that he has hit the ground running is very, very strategic and very commendable. But Nigerians are also looking forward to not just these kinds of visits, but let's see how results will begin to emanate from some of those visits that he is embarking on. Don't forget, insecurity is a very, very big issue, and it has gone past just insecurity, like internal insecurity that we are facing. It has also become terrorism, which is it now has an international face to it. Okay, so it's going to be a very hydra-headed situation that Bola Tinubu would face, and at this point, Nigerians are also very, very key at looking at how President Bola Tinubu will also be tackling insecurity in the country. It's going to be a big task ahead for him, but we just pray that he's able, with all of those people that he's going to be working with, he's able to nip all of this in the bud. Okay.
We also just to let that to rest. He has said one way he is going to handle insecurity in his tenure is to adopt contemporary measures to handling insecurity issues. Like he had stated during that visit, terrorism is a global issue, so we also need to look for
an international
global best practices to handling insecurity, not just like voting money into the system. So we believe, like he said, that the country is on a path to success.
And then just to add now, that even when we talk about budgets that go into security, it's just a whole lot. Okay, there's just a whole lot of money being chunked in there. So when we are talking about even an overhaul of the security architecture, we should not just be talking about retiring people. We should also be talking about building personnel. We should be talking about international best trainings for these people. We should also be talking about equipment. When you see the police, the typical policeman on the road fighting crime, what kinds of equipment does he use? What kinds of gadgets?
The amount of money budgeted
for those arms and ammunitions, right? And then you call somebody and a security personnel, and then you find out that even the militants, even the headers, even those that kidnap on the high, have more sophisticated weapons and ammunitions. And you're asking, where are these people getting it from? Where are they getting it from?
Serious issues. But then a few days to the wrapping up of the Muhammadu Buhari-led administration, we saw a lot of last-minute launchings and deals being signed into law. And one of the biggest ones was Nigeria Air. We had been promised that before May 29, which was the inauguration, that we were going to see that airline take off. And just a few days before then, the first fleet of the airlines landed at the Abuja International Airport. But then a lot of issues are springing up from this. And right now we're looking at the fact that the House of Representatives has poked holes in the purported launch of Nigeria Air at the twilight of the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, declaring it a fraud. Chairman of the House Committee on Aviation, Nolim Naji, declared the launch of Nigeria Air a fraud after major stakeholders in the deal between the federal government and Ethiopian Airlines denied knowledge of the launch. Now, the Ministry of Aviation claimed Nigeria Air was only unveiled and not launched, which the committee dismissed as an attempt to divert the lawmakers' attention. Members of the committee were shocked when NAMA disclosed that the aircraft bearing Nigerian colors was on a chartered flight to Nigeria. Other stakeholders who confirmed the disclosure noted that a chartered flight could be painted in any color and with any inscriptions. Big issues on ground. We have to unearth this particular one, and thankfully the House of Reps is already on it. When we are looking at the clauses that we are seeing there, chartered flights can be painted any color, so please. We continue to have this conversation of last minute things that were done as conduit pipes to defraud the nation. Would we say that the concept of Nigeria Air has found itself there? And why would we have, members of these different affiliations, coming together to agree for this kind of thing to happen to a country? Then again, don't even forget now that we are seeing the likes of Ethiopian Air and NAMA coming to say that they are unaware of any launch whatsoever.
I think let's even take it back to the fact that it's quite a shameful thing that
Really shameful.
Nigeria as a country, we call ourselves the big brother of
Lion of
Africa,
Africa,
giant of
giant of
Africa, and all
Africa.
of that, and we do not even have an Airbus that bears the Nigerian name. Okay, I remember some years back, pretty long. Now we had what we call the Nigerian Airways, and after that was grounded, till this moment we do not even have an Airbus that bears the green, white, green flag and the Nigerian name as well. So it is even more shameful for the country not to have an identified Airbus that we can call our own. And it was quite light happening when the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari came on board, and they decided that before he leaves office, we were going to have an Airbus that was our own. And it would also be beautiful to see the Nigerian Airbus on the airspace in other countries, and all of that. But it's quite also very shameful that the administration of Hadi Sarika has been marred with a lot of allegations in terms of misuse and misappropriations of funds. Before we even talk about the Airbus and the sham that we are seeing now, let's even look back at the fire service vehicles that were bought for how many $1,000 now, and people were questioning that particular action. And the question was, is this really what our aviation sector needs at this point in time? Is this what the airports need at this point in time? Now we are talking about an Airbus, and I think sometime last week or before the end of the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, we saw that Airbus coming, and it was all heralded, with the pomp and pageantry that is occasioned when you get to launch a new Airbus, the water flow on the aircraft and all of that. But it's surprising that we get to see these kinds of things happen in a country like this, and I'm very happy that the House of Representatives now is calling for a probe into that. Because we can't be having this kinds of back and forth, oh, it is ours, oh, it is not ours. I'm going to bring it to Cross River State. Cali Air, for example. The governor comes up and says, oh, Cali Air, Cali Air, Cali Air. At some point we heard that Cali Air was even owned by Aero, is it, what's the name of that? Aero Contractors. Now, Cali Air flew, subsidized prices, and all of that. And at some point, we didn't see Cali Air again. And I'm shocked that nobody in Cross River State is asking where Cali Air is. So why do we have these kinds of misappropriations of funds? People should be behind the bars.
That's where I was going to come to.
People should
Because
be behind the
when
bars.
we name the kinds of numbers that our politicians and public office holders are siphoning from the country, when you hear the amount of money they are taking away, your ears tickle. And you're wondering today.
It doesn't just tickle. Ears could tickle in sweetness, but ours is tickling in pain.
That's what I'm saying. Ears are tickling in pain. When you hear that one person siphoned 50 billion or 100 billion, we've done the calculation before. If you're even going to spend a certain amount of money per day, it's going to take you a couple of years before you can finish spending money in billions. And you keep hearing that, first of all, we are highly indebted as a nation into the tunes of trillions. But yet, there are politicians in our country stealing from the same country in the tune of billions. And you will hear that today EFCC arrested, they are arraigned. Before you know it, you will hear that a court said this person cannot be detained until it is otherwise proven. So you now have the EFCC just stay as a decorating body where, okay, we think that this person stole. 2 weeks in, outside the person's name has made headlines, you hear that the court has acquitted the person. How are we going about recovering our monies? And they keep doing this because they just know nothing really is going to happen. We are losing a lot of money through, pipe ventures in the country. And if the House of Reps thinks that, the Nigeria Airline initiative is also a conduit pipe, let them probe it to the end.
Exactly.
Because another thing is introducing the conversation of we are having a probe, and before you know it, someone's palm is greased with something, and that is the end of the probe. You now hear that, oh, indeed, there was actually a Nigerian air. They will start flying in September because we are crossing our eyes and
you know that, sorry for cutting you, you know that when the Nigerian air came, the Airbus came, the first reaction Nigerians had was, okay, so why are we just having one Airbus? If this is a launch, why are we having one Airbus? And then Hadi Sarike comes out to tell you that, okay, this is just one. We're expecting how many more? I think he said, 30 more Airbuses that will be coming. I don't think I'm getting the numbers correctly now, but it was said that more Airbuses were going to come. Now, even in that one that came, we are having problems now. So just like you said, the House of Representatives, if they know that they are going to be probing this particular policy or particular contract by the administration, by the administration of Hadi Sirika as aviation minister, then they should probe it to the end. Nigerians want to see results. I think we should even come out from that age where we get to say that we are probing and we don't probe to the end. Let's begin to see results. Let's begin to see good heads on necks of our politicians doing the right things. Like you mentioned something very key: greasing of palms. Let it not be that our palms have been greased and so we plunge almost half of the country, over 200 million people, the destinies of over 200 million people.
Because of a few people.
Because of a few people.
Yeah.
It's really terrible.
It's also unrealistic. Let's even look at it. Do we have what it takes to fly Nigeria Air right now and, keep it afloat? And, part of the problems that the IAIA was having, and some other sectors in the aviation were saying, you want to fly Nigeria Air, why is the chunk of the contract given to Ethiopian Airline? So there's so many things in the project structure that didn't balance out if we want to do this as a country. So like we've said, if the House of Reps wants to probe this, they should probe it to the very end and let Nigerians know what really went down there. Ethiopian Air cannot even be saying they are unaware of a launch. It was different, it was an unveiling and all of that. There is a lot of question to the process and the projects, but let's hope that we can keep unearthing what this is about. But before we bring you more stories on Rise and Shine, Mary Joseph is on standby to bring us tidbits of global news. When we return, security is a major issue in the country, and we will be looking in-depthly into what we have on our hands. Do stay with us.
police force, which is the only one allowed by across them. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court, my lord.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for Spectrum TV to recover from the lapses taken into counting.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum. Live from Uyo, I am Mary Joseph. First in the news this morning is a report that the National Assembly on Tuesday approved a request by President Bola Tinubu to appoint 20 special advisors. The President's request letter was read by the Senate President Ahmed Lawan and the Deputy Speaker Ahmed Wase to lawmakers on the floor of the Assembly. Lawan said the President's request was of utmost urgency as he needed a team to work with. In the meantime, the House of Representatives on Tuesday warned the federal government against terminating the contract signed with a private firm, Iris Smart Technologies Limited, for the production of electronic passport booklets. According to the House, procuring the equipment capable of putting the latest security features in the Nigerian e-passport will cost the government about 22 billion naira. The Legislative Chamber also warned that the production and supply of 10 million booklets by the firm would be disrupted. From the Green Chambers, the House of Representatives has poked holes into the purported launch of Nigeria Air at the twilight of the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, declaring it a fraud. Chairman of the House Committee on Aviation, Nolim Naji, declared the launch of Nigeria Air a fraud after the major stakeholders in the deal between the federal government and Ethiopia Airlines reportedly denied knowledge of the launch. We head now to the foreign scene where Ukraine was evacuating thousands of people Wednesday after an attack on a major Russian-held dam unleashed a torrent of water, inundating 2,000 villages and sparking fears of a humanitarian disaster. Washington warned that there would likely be many deaths at Moscow, and Kyiv traded blames for reaping a gaping hole in the dam, which is located on the front line and provides cooling water for Europe's largest nuclear plant. And finally, in sports, Karim Benzema joined Saudi Arabia's all-litter. Real Madrid's Ballon d'Or winner Karim Benzema has signed for Saudi Arabia's all-littered for 3 years, starting next season. Real Madrid has announced that the 35-year-old was leaving the club after 14 seasons, and the day after coach Carlo Ancelotti had said that there was no doubt Karim Benzema's future lay in the Spanish capital. Benzema will join his former Real Madrid teammate Cristiano Ronaldo in the Gulf Kingdom after the 5-time World Player of the Year moved to Al Nassr from Manchester United following last year's World Cup. We'll have details of this and more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine, where we have Janice and Uyai on standby. Do have a lovely morning.
Government, Secretary General, delegates.
Disasters being Lagos, Nigeria for Spectrum TV to recover 45 seconds to counting.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
The Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by gross level, our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding you, lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Rise and Shine, and we're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Where are you watching us from? That is something we would like to find out this morning, and you can do that by joining the conversation on Twitter, SpectrumT online. Drop us a message and let us know where you're calling us from. Of course, we'll soon be opening up our phone lines so that you can get to call and make your contributions also. Of course, several issues have already been conversed on Rise and Shine. You can only catch up on all that if you're following us across all social media platforms. YouTube is where you can always find all our videos. But this morning we talked about the fact that Kwara State government has reduced its working days to 3 to help its workers cushion the effect of the price hike in petrol. We also see the fact that Obaseki of Edo State has decided to top minimum wage by 10,000 naira, also to cushion the effect of the season. We saw that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has visited Counter-Terrorism Center in Abuja and also met and spoke with the National Security Advisor, saying no more to hoarding of information. Let there be synergy within our security forces. We are hearing that the launch of Nigeria Air is a fraud, so the House of Reps has decided to probe into that particular issue. This and more are the conversations we've already had on Rise and Shine. Follow us to have the details. At this point, we move straight up to Daily Spotlight, where we bring you information from the front pages of our national dailies.
Thank you so much for still being there. Of course, this edition or the segment of Rise and Shine, we get to look at the stories on the front pages of our national dailies this morning. And we are a lot of stories making it on the front pages. Yeah. A lot of quite interesting stories as expected.
Yeah.
Let's start off with This Day newspaper. Let's find out what This Day has to say. The big story on This Day newspaper is about NLC. It says, why we suspended planned nationwide strike over subsidy. You remember we were supposed to start the strike today, NLC, not we now. NLC was supposed to start strike today, but they had called that off. So they are giving their reasons why they suspended that particular strike. But looking at the writer of that particular story, they say accuses federal government of weaponizing ex parte injunctions against workers. That's one of the reasons. KPMG reports predicts 30% inflation rate, 6 cushioning measures. We also have that advises federal government to implement Orosanye report. This Orosanye report continues to, come on the front burner every time that we have conversations about protests from the Nigerian Labour Congress. NESG advises government to mobilize public support via citizen education. Now that forms part of the big stories on This Day newspaper this morning. Going forward, we see that Senate grants Tinubu's request to appoint 20 special advisors, and Nadeko congratulates Tinubu's 6th return to federal system. The writer here says deceptively choreographed 1979-1999 constitution, which preserved all the grave damage military government forcefully imposed upon this country, remain bane of Nigeria. Okay. The 1979-1999 constitution, according to Nadeko, it still remains the bane of the issues that we have in Nigeria. I know that a lot of people have talked about the fact that we need to review the 1999 constitution because it was a constitution formulated by what does the military call their own edicts? Is it edicts? There's a word for it. Lawmakers call for forensic audit of 11.34 trillion Port Harcourt Warri Kaduna refineries rehabilitation forensic audit. Okay, so that's all that we have on the front page of this day newspaper.
Moving on from this day newspaper, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper this morning. And the very big story on the Punch says subsidy. Reps demand NNPCL audit over unaccounted 2 trillion naira assets. Some NNPCL subsidiaries bought crude oil without evidence of payment, says lawmakers. Legislators opt back refineries privatization. Uber billed drivers begin nationwide strike. We also see the fact that House alleges fraud, asks Tinubu to suspend Nigeria Air, page 19. 51 jostle for Kogi Bayelsa Imo government seats, page 29. Finally, Senate throws out Buhari's controversial water bill, and that can be found on page 3. That must come as a great relief to a lot of people. Of course, that bill sought to see that the federal government was in absolute control of all water bodies across the country.
Definitely.
Oh wow, that's cause for celebration.
Remember also that we had conversations around that, and I'm sure the chiefs that came that day to protest will be so excited.
Wow, that's great news.
Yeah.
Okay, so we also see here Obasa, re-elected speaker, as Sanwo-Olu inaugurates Lagos Assembly. Anti-inauguration lawyer fined 20 million naira, faces NBA probe, page 8. Of course, that particular lawyer had asked that the President Bola Tinubu should not be inaugurated. We now see here police investigate assassination of UI professor, page 4. Journalism icon, ex-Daily Times editor Enahoro for UK burial today, page 29 is where you can find that particular story. And that is all we have on the front page of the Punch.
Okay, let's find out what Daily Sun has for us this morning. The big story here is on the 10th National Assembly Leadership Torso. The big story says Akpabio's bid faces hiccups as Senator-elect withdraw support. And the writer says APC diaspora rallies support for Orji Kalu. APC governors endorse Abbas Kalu, allow lawmakers choose their leaders, NEF is saying. Moving forward, fuel subsidy removal should be implemented with palliatives in place, says Obi. And the writer says medical dental practitioners back Labour's decision on removal. You can find that story on page 26. INEC clears Uzodimma Sylvia, others for November polls. You can find that on page 28. Reps declare Nigerian air launch fraud, seeks prosecution of promoters. Page 2 is where you find that story. Court dismisses suit against Tinubu's inauguration. You can find that on page 28. INEC denying OS access to sensitive documents at Tiku. PDP tells tribunal. The writer here says discloses plans to summon top INEC officials. Page 28 is where you get that story from. And of course, we have pictorial stories there of leadership of the 10th Assembly. And lastly, on Daily Sun, we have OT terminates revenue collection appointment, suspends banks payments from unauthorized channels in Abia. You can find that story on page 26. And that's all that is there on the Daily Sun.
Okay, let's move from the Daily Sun, and we will be looking at the Nation newspaper this morning. The Nation big story there says Tinubu in crucial talks over Senate President and Speaker. President urges Wase, Betera, Gadi, others to accept party's choice. Meeting slated with APC governors, NWC, senators and reps-elect today. We also see here Nigeria Air launch a fraud, rep panel claims. NLC, why we suspended planned strike, Obi endorses subsidy removal, page 4. Of course, I'm sure a lot of people want to get the details of why the strike was suspended. Page 4 of the Nation is where you can find that detail. Senate okays 20 special advisors for president, page 4. Manufacturers spend 76.7 billion naira on power in 6 months. Page 7 is where you can find that story. That's troubling detail. We also see here filing discrepancies stall Article PDP petition. Court slams lawyer with 20 million naira fine over frivolous anti-Tinubu case. We also see here 10th Senate supports the progressives. That's all that we have on the front page. Some Northwest ex-governors dined with terrorists, says Kaduna governor. Okay, El-Rufai is there again pointing fingers and naming names. Okay, that's a big deal. All right, that's all we have here on the front page of the Nation.
Okay, our last paper this morning. Yeah, do you have Vanguard?
No, I don't.
Okay. Our last paper for this morning is the Nigerian Tribune. And the big story on the Nigerian Tribune says, reps to federal government holds further action on Nigerian Air. Of course, the writer here says, say transaction surety are shrouded in secrecy, fall short of due process. And then we have demand prosecution of all involved in Nigerian Air takeoff. We also have that aircraft bearing Nigerian Air logo chartered from Ethiopian Airlines acting MD. That's all the big story now. You can find that on page 2. Moving forward, how I would have implemented subsidy removal, says OB. Page 5 is where you get that story from. Implement El-Rufai's committee recommendation on constitution. Nadeco tells Tinubu. We also see that a story here says, I will appeal dismissal of suit on Atiku over SPV saga, says Kiyamu. Court dismisses suit filed by 5 FCT residents to stop Tinubu's inauguration. Senate throws out controversial National Water Resource Bill, and confusion persists over new national leadership. Other stories here says reps to hold valedictory session today. That's true, actually. We also have gunmen kill UI professor. Page 27 is where you get details of that story from. But quite sad story there. National Assembly approves Tinubu's request to appoint 20 special advisors. Presidential election, Obi Labour Party tender local government election results from 17 states. Let's move forward. 2 speakers emerge in Nasarawa House of Assembly. 38-year-old emerges speaker in Osun. States inaugurate assembly. This particular story here, the 38-year-old that emerged speaker in Osun State. You know, immediately I saw that story yesterday, I was like, okay, this brings to bear the not too young to run bill, you know, that was signed into law by the president, former president of Nigeria now, Muhammadu Buhari. And if you find a 38-year-old person, I know that a lot of politicians will say that they even started having political roles, you know, earlier than that, 31, 32, and all of that. But it's quite a beautiful thing to see that young people are getting involved and also having this kinds of, positions as well.
Well, that would be a big congratulations to him. We hope to see more young people on that plane, more young people being interested and vying for position and being given the opportunity to serve. I think we are living on the last trip of the older generation, you know, leading us in the country. We expect that come like 2027, we're going to have more young people, you know, vying for positions in the country.
I think what the problem is not even that we do not have young people
vying,
or we have old people vying for these positions. The point is the people that are there now started like 20 years ago.
Exactly.
And they don't want to leave. So you find one person being in the House of Assembly, like Ahmed Lawan. He has been there for over, I think, close to 20 years. What exactly is happening? Is it an inheritance of some sort?
Imagine someone had gone in there at 38. The person is going to be 58 now, if I get my numbers right. But add 20 to that, and you entered at 38, just as 58. This one, just as this one is entering now, and you'll be doing 50. You get there, you sit there to your 58. Then you still be saying, I'm still young. 58 is still young. You now add 10 more years. So these are the issues.
And you're not giving other people an opportunity. People that even have capacity more than you do. Okay, so the longer you stay in a particular place, the more you just get used to that place.
There's going to be lethargy. Yes, there's going to be a lethargy for you getting the job done. You know, you're just there getting the salary. The price of people really doesn't get to you. Someone who's just coming to that position newly is attempting to prove a point. Energy. Yeah, and it's trying to prove a point that your vote was worth it. So they want to do, projects and things to move forward. But well, at the end of the day, I would say that it is dependent on Nigerians to take out Senate members who represent, their districts at the National Assembly or the House of Reps who have been there long enough. It is not their birthright.
At all, it is not. I stand with you. I stand you right now. Okay, so Nigerians, you have the opportunity to get to call us and share your opinion with us. But I think it is now time for us to link up with our guest who is going to be standing by. A lot of very serious issues to be discussed this morning as our focus conversation. Of course, serious killings in Sokoto State. We wonder what exactly is happening and why that should be happening in Sokoto State, and of course the recent talks on reshuffling and bringing in new security chiefs and retiring over 300. How will that be affecting our security architecture and apparatus in the country as we speak? Don't forget the part of our major stories this morning. We told you that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was actually at the National Security Agency now and spoke with the NSA, Babagana Mungono, on ways that we can actually abate the kind of insecurity that we are facing as a country and counter terrorism as well. So these will form our focus conversation this morning. We'll take a breather now and we'll link up with our guest. And when we come back, of course, we'll be having that conversation. Do stay with us. All right, welcome back. Like I said earlier, thank you so much for being a part of Rise and Shine. But now we're going to be going to serious conversations now, and it has to do with our focus conversation. We're looking at the insecurity in different parts of the country, especially in Sokoto, where we have some kinds of killings recently. We're wondering what exactly seems to be the problem in Sokoto State. And then again, we're also looking at the conversation that the president has made recently of retiring over 30 or 300 now, 300 military personnel, and also changing service chiefs in the country. How will that affect the security apparatus in the country? And joining us to give perspective to this particular conversation is an expert, Dr. Yahuza Getso, who is a security intelligence and investigative expert. He's also a community-driven development professional, a consultant on forest criminals and criminality networking behavior, terrorist activities, and network therapy for African and Asian continent, with procurement, logistics, and supply chain management, 6 years career background, and also security, investigation, and intelligence management, especially forest and terrorist network therapy. He has experience and knowledge on social and behavioral change, examination and social philosophy, social psychology reviewer. That's a very rich profile right now for our guest this morning. Good morning, Dr. Getso, and many thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, listeners and viewers, and good morning, team.
Thank you so much. You're in Kano this morning. How is Kano?
Well, Kano is raining heavily, so the weather is really nice because yesterday was a little bit hot. Okay. So we thank Almighty, it is raining now.
Okay, let's go into our conversation proper now. Serious issues. I also like the fact that Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has, in the past couple of days, he started his administration. We've seen him make very strategic moves. But let's look at what's happening in Sokoto State at this moment. On the papers on Monday, we saw that 20 people were killed. And so we are wondering what exactly is happening. Can you give us perspective to this?
Well, there are 9 outline key reasons why Nigeria and Nigerian government, as well as the Nigerian population, were unable to, because the security is a responsibility of everybody, it's everybody's business. So, but why Nigeria and Nigerians failed to deal with the security outlined in 9 items. 1, there are no adequate personnel. 2, there are no adequate and available armament that's supposed to be utilized in facing and changing the challenges. 3, Nigerian governments have not been able to understand, to conduct a realistic root cause analysis, to understand the reason. You know, it is when you understand the reason why a wound happened, then you will be able to know the easiest way to manage it. And 4, the corruption in the cycle of the security agencies. And 5, the inability of the government and the security leadership to work in synergy. And 6, the inability of the security apparatus in their operations to collaborate and corroborate and work as a team together with non-formal security structures. And 7, inability of the security management to provide the social well-being allowances and other things that are entitled for those who are being posted to most of hard to reach and difficult terrain. And then 8, inability of the government and the security operatives to synchronize their operations with some of the experts of my alike, those who are reaching out to reach places where most of the security operatives cannot even mitigate or find a mitigating factor, how to understand, how to scan the geographically, to scan the environment, and understand the terrain. So most of them are being ambushed in the northeastern part of the country, northwestern part of the country, southeast, and the north central, and allied to some extent southwest. So, and then number 9, lack of adequate resources, because we have not been able to provide the right resources, because we undermine the capacity and capability of those who we are fighting. And then number 10, they can be up to number 11. Number 10 is the fact that there is a pervasive poverty. So to the extent that many of the public that's supposed to serve as an informant to the security are now being recruited and engaged by the criminals in those rural communities, especially that of Sokoto, especially that of Zamfara, especially that of Katana, especially that of Kaduna, Niger, and alike, and many parts of the country, even in the northeastern part of the country. And then number 10, we have been trying to politicize the security challenges. And once we continue to politicize the security challenges, we will never move ahead. We will never forge ahead. We will remain where we are, and to some extent, we will even be destroying ourselves. And then number 11, inability of the head of administrations, especially those who are mining our armaments in the armories. Most of the armories, because there are a number of challenges, that a number of arrests and apprehensions that have been presented by both military and other security agencies, which exposed that it is very clear that some of these arms and armaments are being related to those armories that we have armament are released or are being stolen from some of the what do you call it, the armories, the official armories. And finally, the armed proliferation. If this is something we can manage, but we politicize it, whereby we even created an agency to manage and monitor the armed proliferation. But the problem, when we were doing appointment, the appointment was not made on merit. Most of those who were employed based on who you know, who assign you, who give you a long and lengthy, weighty paper to go and deliver. So most of those who were recruited, most of those who were engaged, they were engaged based on the fact that they are needed to do the job, not that they are interested in doing the job. Like what's happened in the recruitment of the military and other security operatives in the last 27 to 28 to 30 years. We had been doing recruitment in a very corruptive manner. Recruitment, for somebody to be recruited, he has to pay. For somebody to be recruited into the most of the security agencies, he has to pay bribe. He has to pay a huge bribe. For a rank and file, they were talking about 700 to 1 million. So I don't think we are really producing a quality.
Okay, so let me even take you on the last thing you just said. It's beautiful to see that you've been able to enumerate a lot of challenges, you know, that has our security apparatus and structure has suffered over the years in the country. But from what you just said, when you talk about recruitment being politicized in the sense that people get to pay for even recruitment, would you say that it is also politicized when we are beginning to choose who heads these particular security outfits like the army, the navy, the police, and the likes? Would we say that it is also politicized? The people have to pay for that as well when we talk about service chiefs?
If it is not politicized to that extent, it is politicized to regional and religious bigotry. We better stop deceiving ourselves. Nigeria is a secular state. It does not belong to the Muslims. It doesn't belong to the Christians. As far as I'm concerned, if those our religious leaders of the ancient history will come back, like that of Usman and Fodio and alike, and like those Christian missionaries who brought Christianity and informed engaged people into Christianity will come back. They will fight us. Most of the Muslims, we're supposed to be kind of like a building, a block attached to one another and cement together. Likewise, the Christians. But most of us, we only talk about religion when we go to church and when we go to mosque. We only talk about religion when we want to, in most cases. Because if at all we are really religious people as we are proclaiming, our social status wouldn't have been what it is today. You realize that when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu mentioned during his inauguration that he has removed the subsidy. Yeah, more than 98% to 99%, I can even see, beat my chest and say 100% of the fuel that had been procured and delivered to most of the fueling stations were delivered based on the price of 194 to 210. But the phone price was immediately start changing to 500, in some areas even to 600,000, to 600 naira. So how can you be a religious person? You call yourself a Muslim and you are cheating your Muslim brother. You call yourself a Christian and you are cheating in your business. It is not in any way. Well, we're not discussing the religious matter, but as far as we're concerned, we are just in the case of appointments, we are using geographical, regional, and religious bigotry, which is very, very unnecessary. So we are not being fair. In most cases, people bring the head of management normally appoints those who they want, and at the same time, even posting of personnel, those who have what they call long leg, those who have godfathers, even if they are not intellectual, even if they are not capable, they are being posted to where there is something to suck, where the milk is available, where the milk is ready. So, and those who are intellectual, but they don't have anybody, they are being posted to where they will suffer, where they will manage their salary, and that is why most of them participated in the onion and cow business and the fish business, and even took over some of these businesses in the northeastern part of the country, and even in some northwestern part of the country, they took over some of the farmland. In fact, in many cases, in some areas, you found that the criminals are collaborating or collaborating with some of the personnel in manipulating and stealing taking over the farmlands, whereby they are producing crops, cash crops and other crops, and they are forcing some of the IDP people and people of other communities that they send a letter to them that if you are ready to help us cultivate so hectares, so place, or for your farmland that we seized, then we will be able to allow you. And then some of the personnel will also close their eyes and allow that to happen, and at the same time also engage some of those people in order to also cultivate their lands for them. So at the end of it, during the cultivation period, rather than having the community members, the large population who have been producing the foods, it is now the security personnel plus, or in collaboration, or in a kind of joint operations and the criminals. So it is very, very difficult. We need to be very, very careful. We need to be very, very serious. We need to be very, very optimistic. We need to even scan and see through the problem. Yes,
yeah, still speaking about collaboration and cooperation between, the bandits and the security agencies. We are looking into the crisis that just broke out in Sokoto State, and one of the reasons we hear as part of why these villages were attacked was the fact that these communities refused to pay certain levies imposed on their communities to the bandits. And you have just highlighted a little bit by saying that there are some members of the agencies and these bandits that try to force activities on communities. So far so good. What are the intels that you've had as regards the stance of this community? What exactly was this levy about, and that these communities refused to pay, hence the attack on their communities by these bandits?
Well, some of this levy is meant for the bandit groups to mobilize more funding for them for their social well-being, economic well-being, and also to enable them be able to procure, to maintain their logistics supply and supply management, procurement and supply chain management of getting the food and getting the armament. Because most of these armaments are being bought through different channels and different strategies. So if they don't, they were kind of pushed by the security just before election and during the electioneering and in between the election and the swearing in. They were pushed to the wall to kind of, many of them were neutralized. So the rest of them, they don't have access and courage and confidence to kidnap people. So they are using the strategy in order to kind of mobilize additional resources for economic well-being and to be able to continue to sustain their life. So they set it as a threat to the communities.
But
mobilize
Dr.
this
Getso,
amount of, yes, please.
why would it be that it is the duty of communities or members of the community with government? I hear that the governor of Sokoto now, Ahmed Aliyu, convened an emergency security meeting on Monday to try to see how they can address these issues. So I think that rather than cause mayhem in these communities, let the bandits come out and make their collaborations with government and let the Sokoto state government know how they can be sending funds to them, since it has come to these kinds of issues in Nigeria where we begin to negotiate with bandits.
With this new administration, I cannot comment quickly because they are like baby. So we have to allow them suck the milk and grow at least 6 months before we start criticizing them. We don't know what they have. We don't know what they plan to offer. We don't know what their level of commitment. But the first administration of Buhari administration and that of Tambol of Sokoto and that of Mutawalli of Zamfara and the rest of other governors were in those states that were affected with this security mayhem and challenges is just because of inability, refusal of the government to do the needful. I had been saying that the security challenges in Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned, I have a strategic design that operation that I can design if really followed systematically and accordingly. I want to tell you that be rest assured, within 28 days, we can be able to manage the security challenges and reduce it from 100% to 66, the right armament and the right equipment, if really there is going to be a synergy in operations between land army and the air force, if really the government is really going to force the security agencies to collaborate and partner with the local vigilante and forest marshal and hunters and those alike. Because there are many of them, even if you face them with a gun, no matter what type of amount of bullet you have, that bullet will never hit them. The bullet will come out of your gun, AK-47 or whatever, but it will not even reach where they are. And they will be standing looking at you and laughing at you. And they are very important in this fight. And we know them. The security agencies of security operatives, they know them. All the ward heads, all the district heads, all the emirs, all the scholars that we have, both the Christian and the Muslim scholars. And they are capable of dealing with the situation. They can do so many things that even the security operatives, you will be surprised that somebody who is a layman in the forest, whom if you write his name, Ngozi or Ed is Nkechi or Ed, if you write, and you ask him to write it, he cannot be able to write it. This is somebody that cannot kind of write his name. Or even if you wrote his name on a paper and you ask him to read it, he cannot read it. And this is the person that is chasing the trained personnel that have undergone massive training through the Nigerian Defense Academy and other extraordinary and extracurricular courses, or those who were trained in the military school, the police colleges, and what it may be. And they have been in the job for quite a long time. But those idiots, cowards, idiots in the forest, who have not attended any training are chasing them, ambushing them, and killing them. So you wonder if at all the government will really collaborate and corroborate and partner with most of us, and at the same time with most of the people at the downstream, those forest marshal, the hunters, the local vigilante. I'm telling you, within 28 days, we can be able to deal with this situation to reduce it to the minimum barrage level between the 60% to 65 to 70%.
So we are still talking about the importance of community policing now as a way to abate this particular issue or crime.
Of course. I was in Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and many other countries in the Asian states, and even in African states here. Some of the African states have tried the community policing system in a realistic way. Even in Nigeria, we said we have it on paper. I have seen many papers, many written documents that millions and billions of money was siphoned in purchasing those books and what may be. The books are very, very important. The authors are very, very they have done a very good job. I can tell you there is one, Mr. Ibrahim Katina, who was the recently a security advisor to Katina State Government. He has authored many books on community policing. Very excellent write-up. If those things, and I know I have also been to police headquarters, and I have seen many other books in the Department of Community Policing that have been purchased and were authored by Nigerian security experts. But those, you siphon millions and billions of naira to buy the books, but they don't enforce utilizing the books. Whereas you realize that even most of the personnel of many of the personnel of the Nigerian Drugs Law Enforcement Agency are even compromising, whereby they are collecting bribe openly, like that of the police. The challenges were being challenged. The synchronized kind of a relationship in operations, in the security operations between the community and the security operatives. So but the relationship is more or less between like cat and
all right, Dr. Ghetto. All right, synergy is another conversation we need to have. But before we get there, Governor Uba Sani of Kaduna State has said that he and other North-West governors are going to depart from the former plan of paying bandits. So he's saying governors of the last dispensation of leadership usually will pay bandits, to just enjoy some form of peace. But he's saying that going forward, they have had a meeting, the new set of governors have had a meeting to desist from paying or giving money to bandits. Now, he said they are going to, develop new ways of handling the insecurity that they are experiencing in the Northwest. And, something else he said, okay, they need to develop a new framework. So because we're just talking about why should communities be the ones giving money to bandits, and we are also seeing here, as alleged by Governor Uba Sani of Kaduna State, that some governors of the Northwest in the former administration were giving monies to bandits in order to enjoy some peace. How do you see that this is going to influence the progress that we make with regards to security in this?
Governor Obasani very closely in the last almost 19 years. I know the governor of Katsina State in the last 27 years. I know the governor of Sokoto State in the last 16 to 17 years. I know the governor of Zamfara State in the last almost 6 to 9 years. Very well. I'm very close to them, and I know their commitment. But sometimes you cannot judge individuals. I'm not discouraging them, and I don't want to go into commenting into what they are proposing. I will do everything possible to continue to motivate them and mobilize them and go closer to them and work with them and provide required support to ensure that they achieve and succeed in their mission and vision in respect to what they said they want to do. It's a very good innovation. It's a very good strategy. It's a very good kind of plan. And it's good that they started to have the meeting. Even the old governors had their meeting in the 2015, sometimes in the 2016, but the commitment wasn't there. So if this new set of governors will really be committed and have the political will, I told you it's possible. Whatever their vision and mission, as mentioned and outlined by my friend Governor Obasani, I believe sincerely and honestly that is doable. And I know Governor Obasani, as my knowledge to him, personal knowledge, I know he's very determined. I know he's a very serious person. I know he has a vision, and I know whatever he wants to really to achieve, he do everything. He to take every step possible to ensure that he attain those goals and be able to deliver and find results. So I'm encouraging them. It's quite interesting and it's quite encouraging, and it's a good mission and vision. And I will follow up closely with them through the media and directly to ensure that something happens. If they are serious. If they are not serious, after 6 months, you will start hearing my voice will be changing.
I trust you on that.
I'm giving them a change of 6 months to 8 months to see the commitment and the real seriousness in transmitting their voices into action.
Okay, so just to piggyback on something you always talked about in the former administration about information gathering and dissemination and how these things were interpreted and or implemented. Now we've seen the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, say he's calling for the security forces in Nigeria to synergize and harmonize information dissemination to help us achieve a robust, progress with our security. With that speech that he gave when he went to visit the NSA, what are your hopes and expectation of the Tinubu-led administration, and how far do you think that synergizing information is going to help us going forward?
Well, I really commend Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and I have written also a 3-page note to him based on extraction of what he has mentioned in relation to security intelligence and the challenges we have in the country during his inaugural speech. I hope the letter I sent reaches table by now. Even if it didn't reach, I know probably the process will take it over. And based on the good relationship I have with the SDF, that is the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Akumi, I know personally I will take the letter also to Akumi, and I will make a push to make sure that they look into it. It's very possible. I really commend his commitment and the statement he has made, but he has to do a general overhauling of all the security operatives.
Okay, I think that brings us to the next question, and more like the final question now before we wrap things up. Of course, there has been insinuations that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in trying to curb the terrorism issues that we have in the country, is going to be appointing new service chiefs, and which also means that when he appoints new service chiefs, depending on the cadre he's going to be bringing these new service chiefs from, there's going to be also a compulsory retirement of some military personnel. And we are finding out that about 300. And now you have talked about some of the issues bedeviling our security architecture as inadequate personnel. Now, do you think that this is going to do us any good at all? Let's not also forget that the likes of the chief of army staff now, Lucky Rabo, and the other service chiefs that we appointed, it's not too long that former President Muhammadu Buhari brought them on board.
Well, it is not the change in the security leadership that matters. What matters is how serious the government is in pushing them to do what is right. They have the skills, they have the commitment, they have the interest. Rahul is a very serious and responsible officer as far as the record is concerned. And in the statements he has been making, there are a lot of commitment determined, but probably he has not even provided the enabling environment. So no matter whosoever is brought as a new chief of defense staff, chief of army staff, IGP, the DGSSS, the DGNI, the NSA, whosoever is being brought, if the corruption have not been removed, if those who committed suicidal offenses have not been brought to book for to deal with them decisively and accordingly, have a deterrence for others, and telling you will not move an inch, no matter what the political commitment and the interest is of that Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I hope My submission and other submissions will be utilized in managing the security based on the extraction of the commitment he made during his inaugural speech as far as security is concerned in Nigeria. But the problem is not about changing. It's about doing. It's about seriousness. It's about having. We had a Buhari administration that is weakly felt, not a serious government. So if we don't have a serious leadership, we are going to remain where we are. In fact, it may even be worse than what it is because of the level of hardship and level of pervasive poverty that is an inability to have an organized system. Yes, it's good. Those who are being retired by going for forceful retirement, there must be reasons, 1, 2, 3 reasons. But I'm not saying if at all the government would chase them, would send them on forceful retirement, then the government should also conduct a massive recruitment into the services through the polling units, the political wards, the local government. If at all you can recruit 80 youth between the age of 17 to 22, 80 per polling unit. If in a political ward you have 10 polling units, it will give you 800. If in a local government you have 10 political wards, it will give you 8,000. So let's pilot this strategy and distribute in 500 out of 773 local governments that we have in the country. Let's pilot it and let's distribute them among all the security agencies. And let's do a realistic procurement process of armament, not deceptive a kind of procurement of arm and armament that and security gadgets that was done by Buhari administration, who wasted trillions of dollars and pound sterling that have been borrowed without judiciously utilizing them. That I believe that 10% of what Buhari has spent on security, if was used judiciously, the security challenges we have in the country could have been a story. If President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is really serious, the managing security challenges in Nigeria is possible, and there are peaceable, easiest way of dealing with it within a shortest possible time, but when we have a serious and committed government.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Yahuza Getso, security intelligence and investigative expert. It's always a pleasure to have you, share your wealth of experience anytime on Rise and Shine. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you this morning.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great pleasure. Bye.
All right. Before we even take a breather, serious conversations. I like the fact that Dr. Yahuza Getso would definitely break it down, break everything down so that it's simple enough for everybody to understand. But recruitment, while we are also looking at new service chiefs, we are recruiting people that are both, that is military ethics, because depending on the cadre that the president might want to bring his new service chiefs, the people above will definitely have to forcefully resign. Now, when you're resigning these people, we have issues of inadequate, personnel. So you have to recruit more. So maybe you might just be recruited into the military.
I don't think I have an interest in being recruited. I know Dr. Getze has told us before that there are persons who are genuinely interested in joining the Nigerian military. If we take off, the roadblocks that are there, religious embargoes, regional embargoes and all of that, like he said, some people pay
politicizing as well,
between 700 to 1 million naira to be recruited into the Nigerian military. And you find out that some of these persons, when they pay to get in there, they, like Dr. Ketson said, they need to do the job. It's not like they want to do the job. So it's different when you send those people, like he said something today, members of the Nigerian military, they are educated enough to be able to handle the situations, that they find on the field. But how do you find out that someone who's uneducated and cannot even communicate or help themselves chases them out of the field, when they get to work? But these are more issues that, like he said, we need to give a window of time to the Tinubu-led administration to really see how they intend to put down their foot with regards to security. We've seen the president have, quite some intelligible conversation around the security, architecture. So, but let's see, between now and the next 6 to 8 months, like he said, even some of the moves done by the Northwest governors right now, how is this going to overall affect what we experience in security? And then we can now begin to say whether or not this is going to be a bumper ride.
Yeah, and then the corruption, innate in the security apparatus now, where you get to buy arms and ammunitions, and the procurement in itself, you hear how much has been sunk in to buy arms and ammunitions, and at the end of the day, we still have, we talked about this earlier, we still have military personnel use substandard weapons. And how do you intend to use these substandard weapons to fight against people that are using very sophisticated weapons? So it's a big issue, and we just hope that this present administration, like they will always say, they have set the ground running or hit the ground running. They will definitely hit it running and bring results, because Nigerians want results and nothing more than that. We'll take a breather now just to catch some air, and when we come back, of course, we'll be putting an end to all our conversations this morning. Just stay with us.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421, and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Thank you so much for always choosing Rise and Shine. Thank you so much for always choosing Spectrum Television. And so before we end our show this morning, we have a message from my Dogari, of course, a fan of Rise and Shine, Muhammad Abubakar, has sent a very lengthy message. So I'll just take time to read it out. It says, "Good morning, ladies. Good to see you. You're both looking gorgeous." Thank you so much, Muhammad. He also said, "I heard you talking about human beings like cutting corners relating to the new 3-day working schedule for," of course, I'm sure he wanted to talk about Kwara workers, aimed at cushioning the effect of subsidy removal. Indeed, here in Nigeria, cutting corners was made to be the catalyst for survival and successes by both ordinary man, the elite ruling class, and the ordinary Nigerian. Unlike the case in developed and civilized nations around the world, where both the elite and the ruling class were governed by a common law. Why would President Tinubu alone decide on delicate matters impacting on the livelihood of almost all Nigerians, like removal of subsidy, honestly, without following due process? Cutting corner, of course, prudence and good virtues hardly translate to success because our laws are not working. Now, to further explain the statement, according to our Muhammad, he says the suspension of earlier now strike by NLC and TUC left me wondering whether the labor executives were bought by the executive and their mouths sealed with dollars, or they consider the ordinary helpless and voiceless Nigerian a punching bag and a catalyst for them to wine and dine with the elite ruling class. Oshomole became the governor courtesy of his NLC popularity. That's quoting Kwanas to glory. To be honest, the right action by NLC would have been reversal to the earlier pump price before suspension of the strike. Mohammed Abubakar Maidurgari. Serious issues have been pointed out there.
Serious issues. Just to piggyback on the NLC conversation, we are really concerned because it's more like, oh, we had a meeting with the government and with the leadership, and we decided to scrap the industrial action.
But again, let's not forget there was an injunction from the Federal High Court for them not to
carry out the industrial action. But then again, they have said this is just for 21 days. They have given a fresh ultimatum, 21 days, and if the government does not do whatever they had discussed behind closed doors after 21 days, whether there's a court injunction or not, because they had not really even conceded to the court injunction. After the 21 days, because of the conversation they've had with the government, if the pump price and other things are not reviewed, we may be looking at still having that industrial action and rise and shine this morning.
All right, that's all that we have on the show. Yeah, it's been a great time, of course, discussing Nigeria and discussing some of our issues. But again, like I'd always say, it's the only country we have. The more we talk about things, the more we desire to see change and the Nigeria that we can call a Nigeria of our dreams. But this is the much we can take. My name is Janice Coburn, but I want to say a big thank you to everybody that joined us this morning on the show. We love you. And of course, we'll do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Of course, let's not forget that security is everybody's business. Let's keep on, keeping ourselves safe. Say what you see when you say it. My name is Uyai Anek, and we hand you over now to Sports Central, and do enjoy the rest of the programming. See you tomorrow.